Hello everyone, my name is Chavda and I am a research scholar from Sabarmati University, Ahmedabad. It is a privilege to share my findings with you today. The title of my paper is Subverting Epic Silence, Reclaiming Female Agency in Kavita Kane's Tara's Truth. The research explored how contemporary retellings of Ramayana are actively transforming our understanding of marginalized female figures, moving them from peripheral to central of the narrative. The traditional Ramayana, Valmiki's Ramayana, is a cornerstone of Indian identity, focusing on male narratives of heroism, dharma, and conquest. The male-centric gaze often silences the inner lives of female characters. The status of female characters are women are frequently reduced to archetypes: the devoted Sita, vengeful Surpankha, or dutiful Tara. In mainstream versions, Tara is a pivotal figure of the Vanara alliance, yet her personal agency and emotional turmoil remain unexplored. This epic silence equates female value with subversive and sacrifice. The novel Kavita Kane's Tara's Cruise centers Tara, wife of Vali and queen of Sugrives, as the protagonist of profound agency. The core argument: the paper examines Kane's work as a subversive act that challenges traditional Ramayana interpretations. It argues that Kane reimaging Tara not as a tragic widow forced into remarriage, but it's a strategic stateswoman. The narrative reclaims agency by highlighting Tara's intellectual diplomacy, emotional resilience, and moral ambiguity. Theoretical framework and literature review. It's theoretical Alan Shorter's gynocriticism, excavating women's textual space, and Judith Butler's performativity, genders enacted through subversive narratives. Literature context: Valmiki's portrayal, Tara is a dutiful adject whose foresight is dismissed as a mere wifely counsel. Feminist scholarship: Nabina Niti Devsen and Chitra Banerjee Divakaran posit epic as a fluid text ripe for subversion to reclaim silenced women. And Nick Kanes specially targets minor women like Urvi and Tara to challenge gendered hierarchy in epic. Methodology approaches: comparative textual analysis juxtaposes Valmiki's Ramayana with Kane Tara's Truth's contemporary, focusing on intellectual autonomy, relational negotiation, and sacrificial subversive. Post-colonial feminist framework used to unpack intersection of gender, caste, Vanara as a subaltern, and divinity. Analysis from peripheral pawn to political architect. Subverting destination. Kanye opens the novel with Tara's internal dilemma regarding her widowhood and remarriage, thrusting readers into her psyche. Intellectual agency: unlike the stoic widow of Valmiki, Kane's Tara actively architects Kishkinda's survival using extraordinary intellect and foresight. The curse as a power. Tara's curse as a Rama is portrayed not as a vengeful outburst, but as a calculated retribution that reshaped divine rejectorist, reframing Krishna in the next life. This performance her from a secondary character to an empowered woman, impacting the core story. Analysis second, the truth as a feminist subversion. Redefining compromise: the truth marrying Sugriva, her husband's killer, is a strategic move to protect her son Angad and legitimize rule rather than simple submission. Tara questioned the erasers of female subjectivity. Are our desire relevant to the course of destiny at all? Diplomatic statesmanships case in when Lakshman rages at Sugriva's delay, it is Tara who intervenes with eloquent persuasion to save the alliance. This scene, absent in Valmiki, establishes her as a skilled diplomatic. Analysis 3 Trauma, Collectivity, and Intersectionalist Humanizing myth, Kane used flashback to childhood to show seeds of love, hate, jealousy, humanizing Tara beyond the text. The narrative addresses unclaimed experience of trauma and grief. The novel waves in LGBTQ plus elements such as a Vrikshraj, transgender father of Vali and Sugriva, extending agency to intersectional marriages, reflecting trends in feminist retellings where women from network to challenge isolation. In conclusion, Kavita Khane's Tara's Truth is subversive act that successfully challenged the traditional male-centric gaze on Valmiki's Ramayana. By centering Tara, Kane effectively files a epic silence that traditionally evocated female value with subversive and sacrifice. The narrative reclaims Tara's agency, demonstrating her as an intellectual diplomat and strategic stateswoman whose action crucial for political survival of Kishkinda. Here are some references which are selected for this paper. Thank you.
Hello, the next research paper is on subverting epic silence, reclaiming female agency in Kavita Kane's Tara's Truce, which was presented by Indubahen Chavda, research scholar from Sabarmati University, Ahmedabad. This particular paper argues that traditional Ramayana narratives largely privilege male heroism, often marginalizing female characters as passive figures. It highlights Kavita Kane's Tara's Truce as a revisionist retelling that breaks this silence by placing Tara at the center of the narrative. Tara is reimagined not as a helpless widow but as a woman of strong agency, intelligence, and political wisdom. The study also emphasizes Tara's role as a strategic stateswoman who negotiates power within a deeply patriarchal system. Using a feminist lens, the paper shows how Kane portrays Tara's choice as acts of resistance and survival rather than submission. The analysis draws on rewriting mythical stories to challenge fixed and male centric interpretations of the Ramayana. It reveals how Tara's character highlights the intersections of gender, power, duty, and destiny. The paper concludes that such feminist retellings have strong relevance today as to recover silenced voices and enrich contemporary feminist discourse. So, I congratulate the research scholar for presenting a very good paper which is based on rewriting of the Ramayana from contemporary perspective and keeping in mind the female centered character called Tara. Best wishes.
Respected Chair, distinguished scholars, and participants, my name is Manika and I'm a PhD scholar in Shulin University, Solon. It is a privilege for me to present my synopsis at the conference that is Viksit Bharat at 2047. Restructuring higher education with Indic priorities organized by Vedanta, which foregrounds the role of Indian knowledge, traditions in shaping an inclusive and ethically grounded future. My paper examines the reconfiguration of India's borderland governance in post 2019 Ladakh with a special focus on securitization, development rationalities, and identity narratives. By situating Ladakh within the broader vision of Viksit Bharat, this research argues that higher education and policy oriented scholarship must engage with borderland regions as it promotes harmony, plurality, and ethical governance. Such an approach is essential for a Viksit Bharat, that is, a developed nation, or India, that is not only economically strong but also socially cohesive and culturally sensitive. The administrative reorganization of Jammu and Kashmir in 2019 led to the creation of Ladakh as a separate union territory. It brought a major changes in how this region is being governed. Border regions in India have a mix of national security concerns, territorial controls, and social realities. Ladakh, often known as the Land of Passes, is one such region where these factors come together in a sharp and more visible way. Its remote location, diverse population, and harsh climate, and more importantly, its position between India, China, and Pakistan, give it a great strategic importance. For many years, Ladakh remained on the margins of political power within the former state of Jammu and Kashmir. It was governed under special constitutional provisions, but in 2019, with the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act, the Jammu and Kashmir was bifurcated into two separate union territories, and since then, Ladakh has been viewed through a security lens. Academic research on Ladakh still remains limited. The studies mainly focus on Kashmir as a whole or on geopolitical rivalry with China. But this research seeks to fill that gap by studying how security thinking affects governance, development, and identity in Ladakh after 2019 from a perspective of borderland and its people. Context of research problem. Ladakh consistently experienced political marginalization within the former state of Jammu and Kashmir, leading to the long standing demands of direct central administration. Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act of 2019 altered this arrangement. This region now experienced an expansion of military infrastructure, strategic road networks, and surveillance mechanisms justified by national security imperatives. While security led development is necessary, there had been protests that were led by Kargil Democratic Alliance, lay apex body demanding statehood and inclusion under 6th schedule that would restore full political representation and empower local autonomous district councils, ensuring decentralized governance. But my research questions would be, how has securitization in Ladakh post 2019 reshaped borderland governance by transforming development practices and identity narratives? How do tensions between national security imperatives and borderland subjectivities manifest in governance practices? How have India's relations with China and Pakistan shaped its security and governance approach towards Ladakh? Significance. The research brings attention to how changes affect everyday governance, development choices, and lives of the local people. This research would treat Ladakh as a region with its own political experiences, concerns, and identities. It connects issues of security with questions of development and identity in a more grounded way. This research can offer useful insights for decision makers as well, as it can help them think about more inclusive and locally sensitive ways of governing border without compromising national security. Methodology. This research would adopt a qualitative research approach. Data will be collected from multiple sources to capture different perspectives. This includes government notifications, policy documents related to administration, parliamentary debates, committee reports, and press releases. Where feasible, semi structured interviews will also be taken with the civil society members, activists, local political representatives, and scholars that are familiar with Ladakh. Many literature, like The Vicious Circle of Securitization Processes in the Former India State of Jammu and Kashmir by Constantine, or Alienation That Continues, Chang Pas by Tripathi. Such literature either focuses on pre 2019 governance or treats Ladakh as a strategic space devoid of local identity. The aim of the research is not to measure policy outcomes alone, but to understand how governance is imagined, implemented, and experienced in a sensitive border region. Ladakh is treated not only as a geographical area, but a socially, politically produced space where state politics, security narratives, and local responses interact. So the study moves beyond constitutional or geopolitical explanations to foreground everyday implications of security driven governance for local participation, representation, and belonging. Thank you so much.
Hello. Our next research paper was titled as Reconfiguring India's Borderland Governance, Security Development, Rationalities and Identity Formation in Post 2019 Ladakh, which was presented by Manika, research scholar from Sulini University. She presented her paper in a very lucid and comprehensive manner, highlighting her concern for security and identity formation. In her paper, effectively links security concerns with development priorities, showing how border politics shape everyday governance. It highlights the tension between centralized control and local participation, raising important questions about democratic governance in border areas. The study draws attention to identity and cultural preservation, emphasizing how strategic policy can unintentionally strengthen local mobilization. It applies security theory and borderland studies, thoughtfully giving a strong conceptual framework for understanding Ladakh's governance. The use of qualitative methods and multiple sources, government documents, media, and local movements add credibility and depth of this research paper. The paper also shows that development projects are not neutral but often shaped by strategic and security objectives. It underscores the importance of inclusive policy making, where local voices are considered alongside national security concerns. So, this research contributes to a broader understanding of how security driven policies impact culture, identity, and public trust in the border areas. It implicitly suggests that long term peace and stability require balancing security with social and cultural development. The study is very important, in which the researcher is trying to say that the local voices are equally important to strengthen the border security and the rationalities. So basically, it is a very wonderful paper in which there is a emphasis given on the maintaining, the preserving our cultural voices in the development of Viksit Bharat 2047. So my best wishes to the research scholar.
Hello everyone, my name is Aarif. I am a PhD research scholar, Department of African Studies, University of Delhi. Today I am going to present my research paper which focus on NEP 2020 and India-Africa Educational Cooperation, a roadmap from internationalization to Viksit Bharat 2047. NEP 2020 is one of the most important reforms in Indian education system. It aims to make education more flexible, multidisciplinary, skill-based, and global connected. The policy highlights the importance of internationalization, that Indian university should build stronger tie with institutions across the world through student exchange, joint degree, research partnership, and digital learning. So why India-Africa education cooperation matter? So India and Africa share a long friendship that go back to days that anti-colonial struggle. Today, this partnership is expanding many areas such as trade, health, technology, and education. Education, one of the most stronger pillar to this partnership. So more than 25,000 African students study in India. India offer thousands of scholarships through ICCR and Ministry of External Affairs. Digital platform like e-Vidya Bharati and e-Arogya Bharati. The IIT Madras Zanzibar campus is the latest example for strong academic cooperation. These programs shows that education is becoming a bridge between India and Africa. So how NEP 2020 support these partnership? So NEP 2020 introduced several features that can stronger strength India-Africa cooperation. So these have five cooperation among these. One is student and faculty mobility. Second, joint and dual degrees. Third one is digital learning platform like Swam and Diksha. Fourth is flexible credit system ABC. And last one is research collaboration. So we have opportunities. So Africa has the world youngest population, and India has strong digital education capability. So both regions want skill development and employed oriented training. South-South cooperation created a more equal and respectful partnership. So challenges is differentiate in accreditation and quality standard, digital divide in a certain African region, limited fundings and infrastructure for research, visa and administrative delay. So my research ties to study these challenges and propose solution that can make cooperation smooth and more effective. So vision for 2047. So Bharat, Viksit Bharat by 2047, and Africa has its own long-term development plan known as Agenda 2063. So education is a center to both. So by 2047, we can imagine more joint campus like IIT Zanzibar, larger student exchange program, shared digital universities, stronger research network, a new model of knowledge based Gurukul values and principle. In this way, India and Africa can grow together not only as a partner but as a knowledge leader to the global south. In the conclusion, NEP 2020 provides a strong framework for global engagement, and Africa is one of the India's most promising partner. So my research tries to connect policy, practice, and future possibilities to show how India and Africa can collaborate in building a better and more educated and more developed future. Thank you, everyone.
Hello. Now, to move further, I present the review of the next research paper, which was titled NEP 2020 and India Africa Educational Cooperation, a Roadmap from Internationalization to Viksit Bharat 2047, which was presented by Mr. Aarif, who is a research scholar from Department of African Study, University of Delhi. In his paper, he tried to offer a new roadmap by comparing the vision of NEP 2020 and Viksit Bharat 2047. So, this paper provides a detailed and visionary analysis of NEP 2020 and enhance India Africa higher education partnerships. It effectively links India's Viksit Bharat 2047 vision with Africa's agenda of 2063, showing the common goals for inclusive growth and development. The research highlights existing programs like eVidya Bharati, eArogya Bharati, ITEC, and ICCR scholarships and explores how they can be scaled and integrated. The paper also proposes practical narratives such as joint universities, digital credit transfer, vocational skill corridors, and knowledge dialogues inspired by Gurukul and Ubuntu models. It uses a mixed method approach, including policy analysis, case studies, quantitative data, and scenario modeling, which strengthens the credibility of the study. The study identifies key challenges such as accreditation process, digital gaps, funding issues, and the research collaboration. And finally, this paper highlights the strategic and civilizational role of India in global higher education by presenting a model that fosters innovation, employability, and critical thinking. So, I congratulate the research scholar for coming up with this new kind of framework and comparing the vision of Viksit Bharat 2047 with Africa's vision of 2063. Best wishes.
Hello everyone. My greetings to all the participants, dignitaries and audience. My name is Priyanka Patel. I am working as an assistant professor at Charotar University of Science and Technology, Changa. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Vedant Knowledge System for organizing this wonderful conference and for giving me an opportunity to present my research paper. It is my privilege to present research titled Lessons for Humanity, Bhakti and Sufi Literature as Moral Guides and Their Impact on Indianness in Tagore, R.K. Narayan and Mulkaraj Anand. Indian literature has always been deeply rooted in spiritual consciousness and ethical reflection. Among the strongest influences shaping the cultural, moral, and emotional identity of India are the Bhakti and Sufi traditions. These devotional movements not only challenged rigid social structures but also promoted universal values such as love, compassion, equality, humility, brotherhood, and moral responsibility. My paper explores how these centuries old spiritual traditions continue to shape modern Indian literature, particularly in the short stories of Rabindranath Tagore, Mulkaraj Anand, and R.K. Narayan. The purpose of the study is to analyze how Bhakti and Sufi literature act as moral guides, how their values are reflected in contemporary Indian narratives, how these values contribute to what we call Indianness, a collective moral, cultural, and spiritual identity. Bhakti literature emphasized devotion, equality, and moral awakening, rejecting caste hierarchy and ritualism. Saints like Kabir, Ravidas, Mirabai, and Tukaram promoted the belief that God lives in every human being. Their poetry taught compassion, social reform, and emotional sincerity. Sufi literature focused on universally love and human unity, inner purification, and self awareness. Poets such as Rumi, Bulle Shah, and Khwaja Moinuddin Christie stressed that true spirituality lies in love and service to humanity, not in religious boundaries. Together, these traditions built a strong foundation for Indian ethics, communal harmony, and human dignity. As the 20th century brought social conflicts, colonial pressures, and identity crisis, Indian writers revised Bhakti Sufi values as moral inspiration. Now, I would like to talk about the first author, Rabindranath Tagore. Tagore's stories reflect spiritual humanism and emotional depth. In The Postmaster, Ratan's selfless love mirrors bhakti devotion, while stories such as Kabuliwala, Castaway, and Subha criticize social divisions and celebrate universal humanity. Tagore shows that true transformation begins within, echoing the Sufi journey of inner awakening. Whereas Mulkraj Anand focuses on compassion for the oppressed and social reform. In his stories Untouchable, Baka becomes the voice against caste injustice, resembling the revolutionary tone of Kabir and Ravidas. Stories like The Barber's Trade Union and The Lost Child highlight empathy, dignity, and human rights, reflecting the Sufi spirit of compassion. Whereas R.K. Narayan uses simplicity, humor, and everyday situations to teach moral values. His stories such as The Blind Dog, A Horse and Two Goats, and Missing Mill portray moral choices, empathy, and quiet ethical transformation. His writing resembles devotional teachings that convey wisdom in simple language accessible to all. Now, here I will talk about the comparative findings. Across these three authors, we observe that opposing social injustice and inequality, promoting compassion, unity, and universal love, they are depicting moral awakening and inner transformation, reinforcing cultural identity and ethical responsibility. Thus, contemporary Indian literature becomes an extension of devotional moral philosophy and continues to carry forward the essence of Indianness. In conclusion, Bhakti and Sufi traditions remain living moral forces shaping modern literature, society, and cultural identity. Tagore, Anand, and Narayan creatively transformed devotional heritage into humanistic storytelling, reminding us that spirituality is not separate from everyday life but is embedded in love, empathy, justice, and humility. Their work proves that literature is not only an art of form but also a moral guide capable of nurturing social harmony and human values. Again, I am thankful to Vedant Knowledge System. It has been an enriching academic experience, and I truly appreciate the platform provided to share ideas and gain valuable insights. Thank you very much for your support and encouragement. Thank you.
Our next research paper was on Lessons for Humanity, Bhakti and Sufi literature as moral guides and their impact on Indianness in Tagore, Whispers of the Divine, R.K. Narayan and Mulk Raj Anand, which was presented by Priyanka Patel, research scholar from Charusat University, Changa. In this paper, she successfully connects literature with culture, morality, and society and tries to reflect upon the impact of Indianness with reference to Bhakti and Sufi literature. So, her paper, deals with a rich and meaningful theme rooted deeply in Indian culture and literary tradition. It clearly shows how Bhakti and Sufi traditions continue to influence modern Indian literature, making the study relevant and insightful even in today's time. The language of the paper reflects a clear understanding of spiritual humanism and ethical values. This paper successfully connects literature, culture, and society, giving it an interdisciplinary strength. The argument that Bhakti and Sufi values from the moral foundation of Indianness in modern literature is convincing and well presented. Now, she also made a comparison between Bhakti and Sufi that deals and which deals with the short stories of R.K. Narayan, Mulkraj Anand, and Tagore, and she very nicely chosen the selected stories. So, in her paper, she highlights the values such as compassion, equality, devotion, and universal love, showing their presence in the modern narratives. The descriptive comparative approach works well in tracing continuity between ancient traditions and 20th century literary expression. The discussions on how these traditions influence social issues like caste, family relations, and moral dilemmas are particularly strong, and she effectively concluded her paper reinforcing the idea that devotional traditions remain alive in modern literary sensibility not merely as history but as living ethics. So it's a wonderful paper connecting the moral lessons of the old period which gets reflected even in the literature. So my best wishes to the research scholar for her further endeavors to keep writing, keep sharing. Best wishes.
Namaste. I am Tanvi Pujara, a research scholar from Department of English and Comparative Literary Studies, Saurashtra University, Rajkot. The title of my today's research paper is Movements That Matter, Temporality and Emotional Urgency in To His Coy Mistress by Andrew Marvell and Aaj Jaane Ki Zid Na Karo. This paper presents a comparative study of Andrew Marvell's metaphysical poem To His Coy Mistress and the modern South Asian ghazal Aaj Jaane Ki Zid Na Karo. Though they come from different times, languages and cultures, both works show how love is deeply affected by the passing of time. Marvell uses logic and poetic argument to persuade his beloved to act before the time runs out, while the ghazal gently pleads with the beloved not to live as the present moment is rare and free. Both the texts focus on the emotional need to live in the present and to value the moments that the lovers share. This study explores how the fear of time, the desire of the present, and the persuasive tone in love poems can cross the cultural boundaries and find similar emotional ground. This comparative study shows that love, time, and longing are universal themes that connect poets and lovers across centuries and cultures. Whether it is Andrew Marvell writing in the 17th century England or an Urdu poet composing a ghazal sung across Southern Asia, the emotional truth remains the same, that we do not have much time, so we must value the present and people we love. By comparing To His Coy Mistress and Aaj Jaane Ki Zid Na Karo, we see how the poetry helps us express what we fear, the loss of time to love. It also says what we desire to make the most meaningful moments that last longer. As different as these poetic traditions may seem, they both capture the same timeless cry, which is stay a little longer. Thank you.
Hello. Our next presentation was made by Tanvi Pujara, who is a research scholar in the Department of English and Comparative Literary Studies, Saurashtra University, Rajkot. The title of her paper was Moments That Matter, Temporality and Emotional Urgency in To His Koi Mistress and Aaj Jaane Ki Jeed Na Karo. It's a very wonderful and interesting comparison that she has made between one is metaphysical poem and the South Asian ghazal. So first of all, I would like to congratulate the research scholar for coming up with a very novel approach for her paper. If I share my observations, in her paper she successfully shows how love and time are universal themes that go beyond language and culture. The contrast between Marvel's logical persuasion and Ghazal's soft emotional appeal is very well observed by the researcher. The discussion on the importance of present moment highlights in both the poems, and the paper also explains the complex imageries presented in both the poems. The focus on emotional similarity despite the cultural differences strengthens the comparative approach of this paper. The study highlights how poetic expressions of love can connect human feelings across centuries. So overall, I can say that this paper offers a thoughtful and sensitive reading of both the text and adds value to the cross-cultural literary studies. I really offer my wishes to the research scholar for coming up with a very beautiful comparison. Have a nice day.
Good morning, everyone. I am Nidhi Singh, PhD Research Scholar at Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Central University, Sagar, Madhya Pradesh. And today I am here to present a research paper entitled India's Civilizational Diplomacy and the Foreign Affairs. And in this paper, I try to study how to read India strategic alliances or the India foreign policy from the Indic lens. And when we speak about the Indian foreign policy, we often begin it with 1947 or through the Cold War phase and then the non-alignment. But through this research paper, I invite you to travel much further back, not to a date but to a civilization. What if India engagement with the world did not begin with the modern diplomacy manuals, but with the Dharma, Dand, Mitra and the Mandal Siddhant? What if our foreign policy is not merely strategic but civilizational? This paper is attempt to ask such questions seriously. Indian foreign policy has largely misinterpreted by using the Western theoretical framework like realism, neorealism, liberalism, and constructivism. These frameworks are valuable, but they are not neutral because they emerge from the European historical experience like nation-state concept, balance of power, and the colonial expansion. Bharat, however, is not just a nation-state. Instead, it is a civilizational state. By ignoring this civilizational continuity, we risk reducing India to a post-colonial actor, misreading its strategic behavior, and marginalizing indigenous political thought. In this paper, There are three arguments that I have mentioned. India has always practiced diplomacy, but not in the Westphalian sense. Instead, its foreign engagement was guided by Raj Dharma, ethical state of conduct, Dandaniti, calibrated use of power, Mandal theory, re-rational geopolitics, and dharma-based universalism, coexistence and non-domination. These ideas are not abstract. We can see or these are embedded in our Shastra, Mahabharata, Ramayana, Puran, and we also see its reference in Raj Tarangini. My research questions are that I have mentioned in this paper. How did pre-modern India engage diplomatically with the world? What makes Indic international thought distinct? How can India historical power be revived strategically today? And how does geography shape India worldview? And most importantly, how do we decolonize our foreign policy? And why it is relevant to study India foreign policy from the IKS perspective, because India current foreign policy, whether it is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam at G20, strategic autonomy, maritime strategy like Quad and all, civilizational diplomacy with ASEAN nation, cultural outreach through yoga and the heritage, cannot be fully explained by the Western IR theories alone. They make sense only when they view from the India's perspective or the um, IKS perspective. In conclusion, I try to I want to say that India does not need to borrow a foreign policy identity. It need to remember it. By reconstructing India foreign policy through an Indic framework, this paper contribute to India knowledge system, decolonization of social science, and the creation of indigenous IR theory. As a scholar, our task is not merely to study foreign policy or to study India, but to study India foreign policy from the India perspective or from the India. Thank you, everyone.
The next research paper was presented by Nidhi Singh from Dr. Harshing Gore Central University, Madhya Pradesh, and the title of her paper is India's Civilizational Diplomacy and Foreign Affairs. The paper takes a fresh and important approach by studying Indian foreign policy through an Indic and civilizational lens. Instead of relying upon the Western theories, using the classical text like Arthashastra, Mahabharata, and Puranas gives the study strong historical and cultural depth. The attempt to develop Indic theories of international relations such as Dandaniti, Rajdharma, and Mandal theory is both original and meaningful. The discussion on soft power, including culture, religion, language, and art, clearly shows India's long standing global influences. The researcher has also tried to highlight the maritime networks and trade routes which helps the readers understand India's historical global engagement beyond the political borders. The paper successfully connects ancient diplomatic ideas with modern foreign policy thinking, making it relevant for today. The objectives of promoting Indian knowledge systems is valid academic framework which is very well justified, and it is very timely for when we are talking about Viksit Bharat 2047. So it is very much relevant. Then we go back to our Indian roots instead of adopting the Western theories. So the structure and objective of the paper are also very clear and well defined, which also helps understanding the scope of the research. Overall, the paper makes a valuable contribution by encouraging a more balanced and inclusive study of global international relations. It is indeed a very well chosen topic, so I offer my best wishes to the research scholar for her further endeavors. May you continue doing such kind of the research and contribute to the India's vision of Viksit Bharat 2047.
Good morning everyone. This is Amrutha, lecturer in English, Paving Government College Autonomous Chittoor. Today I am going to present on the topic Heritage to Origin, Restructuring Higher Education with the Indic Priorities for Viksit Bharat 2047. As India moves closer to celebrating 100 years of independence, the country has set an ambitious vision known as Viksit Bharat 2047. This vision aims to transform India into a fully developed nation with a strong global influence, economic strength, and cultural confidence. To reach this goal, the most powerful tool we have is education, especially higher education, because it shapes the future minds and skills for our younger generation. India's education system has a deep historical foundation. In the ancient Gurukul system, learning was not limited to academic knowledge. Students lived with their teachers, learned values, disciplines, life skills, environmental harmony, and holistic development. The focus was on creating balanced individuals with the ethical strength, emotional stability, and intellectual clarity. Over the centuries, India shifted to a modern classroom-based, examination-driven education model influenced by global systems. While this model global introduced technology, scientific learning, and global exposure, it also created distance from our cultural roots. Today, India is trying to reconnect these two worlds. The idea is not to choose between tradition and modernity, but to integrate both. This is where Indic priorities become important. Indic knowledge systems such as yoga, Ayurveda, classical languages, Indian mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, and environmental knowledge offer timeless wisdom that can strengthen modern learning. These subjects help build identity, creativity, and moral grounding, which are essential in a rapidly changing global world. The NEP 2020 plays a major role in this restructuring process. NEP encourages multidisciplinary approach, allowing students to learn across streams, develop skills, explore creativity. It focuses on research, innovation, digital learning, and flexibility in courses. At the same time, it recommends the inclusion of Indian knowledge to ensure that education remains culturally grounded. NEP also highlights skill development, critical thinking, communication, experimental learning, qualities needed for global competitiveness and national development. For India to achieve Viksit Bharat 2047, our universities must transform into spaces that promote innovation, digital excellence, and international collaboration. However, they must also uphold values like sustainability, ethics, social responsibility, and community engagement. This balanced approach helps create graduates who are not only employable but also responsible citizens with cultural awareness and emotional intelligence. In simple words, India's journey from heritage to origin represents a powerful blend of the past and the future. When we combine ancient wisdom with modern knowledge, we create an education system that is strong, inclusive, and future ready. Restructuring higher education with the Indic priorities is not just an academic reform, it is a national responsibility and step forward building confident, skilled, and visionary youth. To conclude, the dream of Viksit Bharat 2047 can become a reality only when our education system reflects both global standards and Indian values. By integrating tradition with technology, culture with innovation, and ethics with excellence, India can create a higher education model that leads the world. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
And the title of the last research paper was Heritage to Horizon, Restructuring Indian Higher Education with Indic Priorities for Viksit Bharat 2047. This paper was presented by K.Amrutha in collaboration with S. Sudhakar Reddy, and it is very relevant for the present time, as we are now at higher education level. We are now at the phase of successful implementation of NEP 2020. So the paper presents a clear and inspiring vision of higher education aligned with the goal of Viksit Bharat 2047, and it beautifully balances India's ancient educational wisdom with modern global academic needs, making the argument strong as well as relevant. The use of concepts like the Gurukul system, Indian knowledge systems adds cultural depth and originality to the study. Linking these traditional values with NEP 2020 and digital innovation shows thoughtful and forward-looking approach. The paper also highlights the importance of holistic learning, focusing on not only the skills but also the morals and values. The ideas are presented in a very clear, lucid, and logical manner, making the paper easy to understand. The study successfully shows how heritage based education can support innovative and excellence in the modern world. Overall, the paper makes a meaningful contribution by offering a practical and culturally rooted roadmap for India's educational transformation. So, I congratulate both the research scholars for coming up with such a practical approach and trying to connect our ancient wisdom, which are very much relevant in the practical time, and how they can be implemented. Have a nice day.